The galaxy had long believed Earth to be an unimportant world. To the Galactic Cou, a council of elder species that ruled with iron laws and ancient fleets, humanity was nothing more than a small race living on a blue planet at the edge of a spiral arm. Records in the council's archives marked Earth as a developing world, primitive and harmless. For centuries, no one bothered to look deeper, but the truth was different. Humans were many things: stubborn, curious, restless, and unafraid of struggle. When Earth first intercepted faint transmissions from beyond the stars, leaders of every nation realized one thing: they were not alone. At first there was wonder, then fear, and finally determination. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for conflict with itself, but for the first time, the world stood together with a single purpose. The Cou never suspected that Earth had been watching. From the shadows of their home system, humans had tracked passing ships, decoded signals, and learned secrets not meant for young civilizations. Among the most valuable discoveries was the unstable energy of dark matter, the invisible mass that filled the universe. Where the elder races had dismissed it as impossible to control, humans made it their mission. Decades of research, sacrifice, and hidden experiments gave birth to something no one else possessed: the dark matter warship. These ships did not shine with golden armor like the fleets of the Cou. They were shadows, sleek vessels that bent space around themselves. To the eye, they seemed to fade in and out of existence, as if reality itself resisted looking at them. Powered by reactors that churned with controlled dark matter, they could cross distances in silence, cloak themselves from sensors, and strike with weapons that distorted gravity. The Cou, blind to this growing storm, carried on ruling as they always had. They demanded tribute from weaker species, controlled trade routes, and erased any sign of rebellion with overwhelming force. To them, Earth was too small to matter, until Earth refused. It began with a message. The Council sent an envoy ship, carrying orders for humanity to provide resources and submit to oversight. The message was polite on the surface, but everyone knew what it meant. Earth was to become another subject world. On Earth, leaders gathered in secret chambers deep beneath mountains. They knew this day would come, and they were ready. With one voice, the decision was made: humanity will not kneel. The envoy never returned. Instead, Earth sent back its own message: we are not subjects. We are free. The Cou's reaction was swift. To them, this was arrogance beyond measure. Armadas that had crushed worlds were ordered to the Sol system. Their commanders spoke with certainty. This will be brief, one declared. The humans will learn humility. Billions across the galaxy expected to hear of Earth's surrender within days, but Earth was not the same as other worlds. When the alien fleet approached, human satellites hidden across the solar system tracked every movement. Deep in orbit, inside vast shipyards cloaked from prying eyes, the dark matter fleet prepared to rise. Pilots and captains took their positions. Families on Earth waited in silence, watching the skies, knowing that history was about to be written. The Cou fleet entered orbit with the arrogance of conquerors. Hundreds of gleaming ships spread in formation, surrounding Earth like a cage. Their weapons glittered, their banners waved, and their commanders broadcast a final warning: surrender or be destroyed. The world below remained quiet. For a long moment, it seemed as though Earth would be crushed without resistance. Then, space itself shifted. From behind the moon, from the depths of Jupiter's shadow, from hidden points across the void, the dark matter warships emerged. They did not appear with bright engines or thunderous roars. They slipped into view like ghosts, their hulls bending starlight. For the first time, the galaxy saw the hidden power of Earth. The alien commanders hesitated, sensors failing to lock onto the strange vessels. Before they could react, the first strike came. A single human warship fired a beam that twisted reality itself. A Cou battleship, proud and massive, simply folded in half as though crushed by invisible hands. No explosion, no flames, just silence as the ship broke apart and vanished into the void. Panic spread through the fleet. The Council's ships tried to retaliate, firing torrents of plasma and energy, but their weapons passed through empty space. The human warships were gone, cloaked once again, only to reappear behind enemy lines. Another Cou cruiser imploded. Then another. In the command halls of Earth, leaders watched the battle unfold. Every loss of the enemy was met with grim silence, not cheers. They knew what was at stake. This was not just survival. This was a declaration to the galaxy. Minutes turned into hours. The Cou fleet, once so certain of victory, found itself shattered by shadows. Human ships moved like predators, never staying in one place, never giving the enemy a chance to strike back. One by one, the invaders fell. At last, the surviving Cou ships broke formation and fled, limping away toward the outer stars. For the first time in centuries, the Council had been defeated. Not by another empire, not by a rival fleet, but by a world they had called primitive. On Earth, the news spread like fire. Crowds filled cities, waving banners, tears of pride on their faces. Humanity had done the impossible. They had stood against the galaxy's greatest power and endured. But amid the celebrations, wise voices spoke with caution. This was only the beginning. The Cou would not forget, and the galaxy was now watching. Humanity had revealed its strength, and there would be no returning to the shadows. In the silent void above, the dark matter warships drifted, their hulls glowing faintly with the energy of battles won. Their captains looked out at the stars, knowing more would come. Yet there was no fear in their hearts. For the first time in history, the galaxy would learn the truth. Humans do not bow. Humans fight, humans endure, and the dark matter fleet was ready. Across the galaxy, stars burned as they always had. But the silence between them was filled with whispers. The unthinkable had happened. Earth, a world once dismissed as nothing, had defeated the Galactic Cou's fleet. No one had believed the first reports. How could a single planet resist the Cou, let alone strike them down? Yet signals could not be hidden forever. Fragments of battle footage leaked from fleeing ships. Entire armadas had been shattered, broken apart by strange vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. Images of ships folding into darkness, of mighty cruisers imploding in silence, spread across trading networks and pirate channels. The galaxy had only one question. What had humanity done? In marketplaces across distant moons, merchants whispered the story. On forgotten colonies, rebels replayed the recordings with awe. In the grand halls of alien empires, leaders gathered in shock. Entire species who had lived under the Cou's shadow for centuries felt something new stir in their hearts. Hope. For the first time in living memory, the Cou had bled, but within the Cou itself, anger and fear clashed. The Council gathered in their shining capital, a planet ringed with fleets and palaces. Representatives of 100 elder races filled the chambers, their voices echoing across the halls. They are a minor world. One shouted, his scaled hands slamming the table. How dare they defy us? They should have fallen in hours. Another voice, sharp and cold, replied, and yet they did not. What are these shadow ships they wield? No species has ever mastered dark matter. It is impossible. Impossible? Scoffed a third. We saw the recordings. Our fleets were torn apart like paper. Do you call that impossible? The Council roared in argument. Some demanded vengeance. Others whispered caution. A few, though silent, wondered if the humans had done what no one else dared, looked at the universe with new eyes. Meanwhile, on Earth, leaders met in secret once more. They knew the battle had been only the beginning. The Cou would return, and next time it would not be with a single fleet. It would be with the full might of an empire. But Earth was not afraid. The people had tasted victory, and unity held them strong. For once, every nation stood together, bound by the knowledge that survival depended on cooperation. Engineers worked day and night building more warships. Scientists refined the dangerous reactors that fed the fleet. Pilots trained in silence, ready to defend their world again. And beyond Seoul, Earth's envoys were sent. They did not travel in force, but with messages, carried by fast ships cloaked in shadows. To nearby star systems, they brought a simple warning. Humanity will not be ruled. Some alien leaders laughed at the boldness. Others listened carefully. The humans were few, their world small, but their courage was unlike anything seen in centuries. On a desert world long oppressed by the Cou, rebels gathered in caves and listened to a smuggled broadcast of Earth's declaration. They repeated the words like a promise: we are not subjects, we are free. For the first time, they dared to imagine freedom. But in the grand chambers of the Council, plans for retaliation were already forming. The Cou could not allow this defiance to stand. If one world rose, others might follow. Already the whispers spread too fast, slipping through their control. Admirals gathered, their fleets counted by the thousands. "We will show the galaxy," one declared, "that the coup remains eternal. We will bring so many ships that Earth will drown beneath them." Still, doubt lingered. Every commander remembered the recordings. Ships that vanished into silence, weapons that tore space itself. These were not the tools of a primitive race. Some feared that Earth had uncovered a power no empire had ever dared to touch. Yet pride blinded the council. They told themselves that numbers would prevail. If Earth had a fleet of shadows, then the coup would bring 10 times, 100 times as many ships. In their arrogance, they believed no small world could resist forever. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy watched with rising tension. Merchant ships carried rumors faster than light, spreading tales of humans who bent darkness to their will. On icy moons, miners whispered of the dark fleet. On distant stations, smugglers sold forged schematics of human weapons, claiming to have seen them firsthand. But the truth was known only to Earth. Inside hidden stations orbiting far from home, engineers guarded their secrets carefully. The dark matter reactors were dangerous, unpredictable, and costly to maintain. Every new ship required sacrifices of resources and lives. The fleet was powerful, yes, but not limitless. Humanity knew this well, and yet they stood ready. Back on Earth, ordinary people carried themselves differently. Children learned of the victory in classrooms. Workers built with new determination. Farmers looked at the stars and felt pride, knowing their harvests fed warriors who defended the planet. Humanity had always been stubborn, but now that stubbornness burned like fire. The whispers of hope had reached them too. Across encrypted channels, messages came from other species. Small groups, rebels, and even leaders of minor worlds reached out cautiously. They spoke of the coup's cruelty, of centuries of silence, of dreams long crushed. The humans listened. They did not promise empires or conquest. Instead, they promised only one thing, that freedom was worth fighting for. It was enough. By the time the coup's preparations were complete, the galaxy was no longer silent. Whispers had grown into voices and voices into songs. Across dozens of worlds, beings who had once lived in fear began to speak openly of rebellion. Not all would act, not yet, but the seed had been planted. The coup could sense it. Their empire trembled, not from Earth's weapons, but from the idea Earth carried, that even the smallest world could stand tall. And so, when the coup finally moved, it was not just Earth that watched. Billions across the stars waited, holding their breath. Would the coup crush humanity, or would humanity's shadow ship strike again? In the heart of the Council's capital, fleets assembled, so vast they blotted out the stars. The commanders stood ready, their voices cold with confidence. They spoke as if the outcome was certain, but in their hearts, many remembered the first defeat, and in hidden places across the galaxy beings whispered once more, their words carrying on the currents of space. If humans can fight, perhaps so can we. The stars were silent, but the void was not. It rumbled with the movement of fleets so vast that entire constellations seemed to shift. The Galactic Cou had gathered their might, more ships than most civilizations could even imagine. Cruisers, battleships, carriers, and dreadnoughts, millions of tons of war machines drifted through space like a storm of steel. This was no small punishment force. This was a hammer meant to crush Earth completely. On their capital world, the Council had declared it openly, Earth shall be made an example. No world will ever dare rise again. Broadcasts were sent across the stars, showing the endless fleets preparing to march. They wanted every species to see. They wanted fear to smother hope. But whispers had already spread too far. Across distant colonies, beings watched with nervous anticipation. On hidden stations, rebels leaned close to screens. Entire empires that had once bowed to the coup now held their breath. The question was everywhere. Could Earth stand again? In the Sol system, humans prepared. The dark matter fleet was not as large as the coup's, not even close. Against thousands of ships, Earth had only hundreds. Yet these ships were shadows moving unseen, slipping between folds of reality itself. Their captains did not measure power by numbers. They measured it by will. Inside command halls buried deep beneath mountains, Earth's leaders studied the paths of the approaching armada. They will be here in days, one said quietly. They bring enough firepower to erase us. Another answered, then we will show them again. We do not kneel. Above Earth in orbiting docks, engineers worked without pause. They repaired hulls, refined reactors, and whispered encouragement to the crews. Pilots climbed into their vessels, knowing the fight ahead might be their last. Yet no one faltered. Humanity had chosen its path, and there was no turning back. When the Cou fleet arrived, the sky itself seemed to shatter. Stars disappeared behind walls of ships. From Mars to Jupiter, sensors lit with thousands of signals. It was as if a second galaxy had entered the system, filling every horizon with steel. The Cou commander, proud and certain, broadcast his words to Earth. His voice echoed across the system. "This is the end of your arrogance. You will surrender or you will be erased." But Earth gave no reply. Instead, the shadows moved. From the cold rings of Saturn, from the darkness of Neptune's orbit, from deep within the Oort cloud, the dark matter warships emerged. They appeared like whispers, their hulls twisting starlight, their engines silent. And then the void erupted. The first strike came swift and brutal. A formation of Cou cruisers, proud in their numbers, folded in on themselves as reality bent. No fire, no explosion, just silence as they crumbled into nothing. Panic spread through their lines. Weapons fired in every direction, but the humans were already gone. From another angle, warships reappeared, tearing into carriers with beams that warped space. Fighters swarmed to retaliate, but their sensors failed. To them, the human ships were ghosts, vanishing just as quickly as they came. The Cou tried to tighten their formations, but this only made them easier targets. A single human vessel slipped into the heart of a cluster and released a shockwave of compressed gravity. Dozens of ships shattered instantly, their hulls breaking like glass. The void burned with fire. For hours, the battle raged. The Cou unleashed everything: plasma storms, missile swarms, energy beams brighter than suns. Yet time and again, their weapons found only empty space. The dark matter fleet moved with precision, striking and vanishing, striking again. Still, the Cou's numbers were overwhelming. For every dreadnought destroyed, more pressed forward. For every victory, humanity risked being surrounded. It was not an easy battle. The humans bled too. Some warships fell, their shadows flickering before vanishing forever. Names were spoken in command halls with sorrow, but also with pride. On Earth, the people watched. Every transmission was a thread of hope and fear woven together. Cities gathered in silence, staring at screens that showed only fragments of the battle. When a human ship destroyed a Cou dreadnought, cheers erupted. When one was lost, tears flowed. But above it all, determination remained. Humanity would not bend. The Cou commander, furious and desperate, ordered his forces forward. "Crush them. Overwhelm them with fire," he shouted. His fleet surged like a tidal wave, filling the void with endless weapons. And yet the shadows struck again. From behind the commander's own flagship, a formation of human vessels appeared. Their beams converged, warping reality itself. The mighty flagship trembled, its armor cracking, its shields failing. In moments, the proud vessel that had led countless conquests was gone, swallowed by silence. The Cou forces faltered. Command broken, formations scattered. The humans pressed the advantage, cutting through them like blades in darkness. By the battle's end, the void was littered with wreckage. Thousands of Cou ships burned silently in orbit around distant worlds. Entire armadas had been broken. What remained fled, their engines burning as they retreated into the deep night. For the second time, humanity had done the impossible. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. On colony worlds, beings cheered openly for the first time in centuries. On Cou-controlled planets, whispers of rebellion turned into open defiance. The mighty council, once thought eternal, had been humiliated again. In the chambers of the council itself, silence reigned. Their proud fleets had been shattered. Their enemies had been shadows. Some demanded more war. Others, shaken, whispered of peace. For the first time in living memory, the Cou felt the weight of fear. And the galaxy knew. The council was not invincible. On Earth, the dark matter fleet returned to orbit. Scarred, damaged, but unbroken, they drifted above their world like guardians. Their captains looked down at the planet below, their hearts heavy with loss yet steady with pride. Humanity had proven itself once more. The leaders of Earth spoke not of conquest, but of survival. "We will fight as long as we must," they said. "But we do not fight for power. We fight for freedom." And the galaxy listened. For in the fire of the void, a truth had been written across the stars. Humanity would not be erased. Humanity would endure, and the Cou, for all their might, had begun to crumble. The word count, 3020. Within your 1300 target, third-person simple English, full of tension, no violated content. Would you like me to now continue with Part 4, the fracturing of the Council, in the same 1300-word style? You said Part 4. 1300 words ka likho और interesting होना चाहिए और third-person style में लिखनी है, और simple basic English का. Don't use any violated word. So please avoid any violated content. ChatGPT said perfect. You want Part 4, the fracturing of the Council, written in 1300 words. Third person, simple English, engaging, and fully clean. This part will show how the coup begins to collapse after their defeats, how alien species rebel, and how Earth steps forward not only with strength but also with compassion. Here's Part 4. Part 4. The fracturing of the Council. The once mighty chambers of the Galactic Cou had never known silence. For thousands of years, the Great Hall had been filled with the confident voices of rulers who believed their empire eternal. They had overseen fleets that spanned galaxies, commanded armies beyond number, and demanded obedience from every world under their rule. But now, after Earth's victories, silence hung in the chamber like a shadow. The Cou had been defeated not once but twice. Their fleets, once thought invincible, had been shattered by the strange warships of a small world. The news spread faster than light, carried by traitors, smugglers, and rebels. The truth could not be hidden. Humanity had stood against the Cou and lived. Within the chamber, voices finally rose, sharp with fear and anger. "This cannot continue," shouted one delegate, his tendrils trembling. "Our fleets are falling apart. Entire sectors question our rule." Another slammed a clawed hand on the table. "Then we must strike harder. Burn their planet, erase their people, and remind the galaxy who rules the stars." But not all agreed. A softer voice spoke from the shadows. "We have already tried," she said. "Twice we have come with overwhelming power, and twice we have failed. Each defeat only makes them stronger. Each failure makes our empire weaker." The council split. Old allies turned into bitter rivals. Some demanded endless war. Others whispered of peace. Still others saw an opportunity to break free from the Cou's chains entirely. Outside the council halls, the galaxy stirred. On Cou-controlled worlds, protests erupted. Citizens who had once lived in silence now marched in streets chanting words that had spread from Earth. "We are not subjects. We are free." In mining colonies, workers threw down their tools, refusing to send tribute. On distant agricultural planets, farmers withheld harvests meant for Cou fleets. And on worlds where rebellion had once seemed impossible, banners of defiance were raised. The empire that had stood for ages now trembled with unrest. Meanwhile, Earth did not stand idle. The dark matter fleet, scarred from battle, continued to grow. Shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt and on the moons of Jupiter worked day and night. Engineers and scientists refined their dangerous technology, pushing the limits of what was possible. Yet Earth's leaders understood a truth. Strength alone would not win this war. So they reached out. Envoys traveled in cloaked ships, not to conquer but to speak. "They are not your masters," the humans said. "We are allies. If you wish for freedom, you." The void was alive with motion. The remnants of the Cou's fleets, battered and broken, gathered one last time around the capital of their empire, a fortress world said to be impossible to breach. Stars reflected off their armor like cold fire, their engines glowing with desperate energy. They believed that if they could hold this world, their empire could survive. But Earth's fleet moved silently, a shadow among shadows. Dark matter warships, sleek and invisible, slipped past the outer defenses. They did not rush. They did not hesitate. Every captain knew their purpose. The Cou's reign ends here. In the Council's capital, fear had taken root. Leaders who had once commanded entire sectors now hid behind thick walls, trembling as reports reached them. Entire fleets had fallen. Systems once loyal to the Cou had joined humanity. Their empire, the greatest in history, was cracking at the edges. The Cou's commander, desperate and furious, issued one final command. "Bring the humans to their knees or die trying. Leave nothing alive." The human fleet responded not with words but with action. From hidden positions around the planet, ships struck. Beams of dark matter energy warped the very fabric of space. Cou cruisers imploded silently, their weapons useless against ships that moved like ghosts. Entire battalions vanished in moments, swallowed by shadows. Yet the humans did not seek mindless destruction. Captains carefully avoided civilian zones, targeting only military installations and fleets. Civilians watched from underground shelters and colonies on nearby moons, their eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, they saw that war could be fought without cruelty. The Cou fought with desperation, their remaining warships forming tight formations, firing relentlessly. Explosions ripped through the void and some human vessels were damaged. Yet the fleet pressed forward, their movements precise, their strikes unrelenting. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the idea of freedom itself. On the planet below, the council leaders watched from their fortified chambers. Their faces were pale, their voices shaky. They had ruled for millennia, and yet they were powerless. The empire they had built on fear and obedience was crumbling before their eyes. Then came the turning point. A formation of human ships, faster than anything the Cou had anticipated, slipped through the central defense grid. At their core, the captured fortress ship, the symbol of the Cou's might, hovered, its dark matter reactors glowing with controlled fury. Engineers and pilots had fused the ancient weapon with Earth's technology, creating a force that could shatter any defenses. The Council's palace shook as beams of warped energy cut through the outer walls. Entire districts vanished in seconds. Their once mighty armies were now trapped between the human fleet and the planet's defenses. Panic erupted. Officers argued, soldiers deserted, and commanders fell silent as they realized the truth. They had already lost. From orbit, the humans broadcast a message, not threats, not ultimatums, but words meant to inspire. Your empire was built on fear. We do not seek to rule. We offer you a choice: surrender and live. Resist and your fleets will fall. The galaxy can be free if you allow it. For the first time, many in the council hesitated. Generals looked at each other. Ambassadors whispered urgently. Could it be true? Could one small planet, a world they had considered primitive, actually defeat them without slaughtering billions? The answer came quickly. The Cou's remaining ships fired blindly, desperate to strike the humans. The dark matter fleet moved as one, avoiding every blast, striking back with precision. One by one, the enemy ships vanished. Entire fleets folded into themselves, destroyed not by numbers but by strategy and determination. And then silence. The council, once proud and unyielding, stood alone in their chambers. Their fleets destroyed, their colonies abandoning them, their people no longer loyal. The power they had wielded for centuries had been undone by a single idea: courage, unity, and the refusal to bow. Leaders sent envoys to Earth, their pride shattered, but their lives spared. The humans received them without malice, offering words of caution and hope. The past is over, Earth's leaders said. The galaxy can be free or it can repeat the mistakes of old. The choice is yours. Across the stars, celebrations erupted. Planets that had lived in oppression for centuries rejoiced. Ships once controlled by the Cou now sailed under new flags, symbols of freedom. Communities long silenced now spoke openly, their voices carrying across the void. The galaxy had seen the power of one world, and it had learned a lesson no empire could teach. Strength lies not in domination, but in the will to protect and unite. On Earth, leaders reflected on the victories and the costs. Battles had been fought, sacrifices made, and yet no world had been enslaved. No civilization had been destroyed. Humanity had fought with honor, showing that even in war, justice and compassion could prevail. In the void above, the dark matter fleet returned to orbit around Earth. Ships glimmered faintly with the energy of battles won. Captains looked at the stars, knowing this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven that it could stand against the greatest empire in the galaxy. Now the challenge was to guide the galaxy toward a future of freedom. The Cou, once unyielding, had surrendered. Their rulers were removed from power, and their fleets either destroyed or repurposed. Humanity did not claim their worlds, nor did they seek revenge. Instead, Earth offered a hand, inviting those willing to join in a new galactic charter, one where every species would have a voice. The galaxy responded. Alliances formed, old enemies set aside differences, and the foundations of a new era were laid. Humanity had not created an empire. It had created a promise that courage, unity, and hope could change the stars. And so the galaxy entered a new age. Children born on distant moons looked at Earth and the sky, imagining the people who had changed history. Pilots trained to navigate the stars, inspired by the bravery of those who had first mastered the dark matter fleet. On every world, stories were told of a small planet that refused to kneel, of humans who fought not for power but for freedom. The stars themselves seemed brighter. The void, once silent and cold, now carried whispers of hope. In the hearts of humans, there was no arrogance, no desire for conquest. There was only determination to protect, to explore, and to inspire. They had faced the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known and endured. They had stood against impossible odds, and they had prevailed. The dawn of human ascendancy was not marked by domination, but by the light of hope spreading across the stars. And as Earth turned beneath the silent moons, its people looked upward, knowing one truth above all: the universe would never underestimate humanity again. Humans did not bow. Humans did not surrender. Humans endured. And in their endurance, they had changed the galaxy forever. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was vast and shining, a place where the voices of dozens of alien species echoed like songs in a cathedral. Tall windows looked out into the endless stars, and banners of different civilizations hung from the ceiling. It was here that leaders of many worlds met to debate, argue, and guide the fate of the galaxy. At the center of the chamber stood a round table of glowing crystal. Around it sat the delegates, each representing their people. They were proud old races with long histories of victories and defeats written in their records. Among them sat one new member, a human. The human ambassador was named Elias Ward. He wore the formal black uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, his dark eyes calm as he observed the debate. His voice had not been raised once in the hours of arguments. He listened, patient and steady, while others spoke loudly and forcefully. The council was gathered to discuss an alarming matter. Two powerful empires, the Zorath Dominion and the Velari Collective, were preparing for war. Both were ancient rivals, and their borders had been tense for centuries. Now their fleets were moving again, gathering strength. The council hoped to prevent another galaxy-wide conflict. A tall, silver-scaled delegate named Vornas from the Sereth Alliance leaned forward and spoke with confidence. "We must act quickly to stop the fires before they spread. But let us not fool ourselves. Some races are not ready to stand in the storm of war. They will be crushed if caught between these empires." His golden eyes flickered toward Elias. A murmur spread through the chamber. Many delegates followed his gaze and gave small nods. Everyone understood who he meant. The representative of the Tilaran, a race with long, flexible limbs and glowing skin, laughed softly. "Humans," she said. "They are clever with words and they build fine machines, but their history shows a desperate fear of war. They speak often of peace, of unity, of cooperation. They joined our council only a few decades ago, and already they avoid every military discussion." Another delegate, the broad-shouldered Karens, grunted in agreement. "They are children beside the great warriors of the stars. Their worlds are soft, their people gentle. They do not understand what true conflict means. War will pass them by as the storm passes over a field of grass." Laughter rolled across the chamber, though some were more cautious. A few delegates looked at Elias curiously, waiting to see if he would finally speak. But he did not. He sat still, hands folded, as if the words of others did not trouble him. Vornas continued, "If the Dominion and the Collective fight, we must decide who will take part. The humans," he gestured with his scaled hand, "are not suited. Their fleets are small. Their armies are inexperienced. And more importantly, they lack the will. They are afraid." The word afraid echoed. It carried weight. At last another voice rose. It belonged to Rallan, a thoughtful delegate of the Velari who had studied humans more than most. "Do not underestimate them so quickly," Rallan warned. "They may not speak of war, but their past is filled with it. They reached the stars only after centuries of conflict on their own world. Perhaps their quiet is not weakness but choice." But Rallan's warning was brushed aside by louder voices. "They fear war," cried the Talaran delegate. "They hide behind diplomacy," said the Kirin. "They would collapse at the first strike," shouted another. The chamber grew noisy, each race adding their judgment. The conclusion seemed clear. Humans were not warriors, and they would not be relied upon when the great powers clashed. Through it all, Elias Ward remained calm. His expression never changed. Only once did he adjust his seat, leaning forward slightly, but he did not speak. Some thought his silence was proof of his weakness. Others thought it was arrogance. Few guessed the truth, that he was weighing every word, storing every insult, every assumption deep within his mind. When at last the council called for a pause, the chamber quieted. The great bell chimed, signaling a recess. Delegates rose and drifted away to private talks. Elias stood as well, moving toward the window. He gazed at the stars beyond, his face lit by the glow of distant suns. To any who looked at him, he seemed thoughtful, almost fragile. Yet behind his eyes lay the memory of Earth's long history. Wars that had scarred continents, battles that had shaped nations, sacrifices that had built peace from ruins. He remembered the stories taught in Earth's academies, the great wars of the past, the soldiers who fought in trenches in skies and across oceans. Humanity had bled more than once, and from that blood they had forged both wisdom and caution. Peace was their treasure, but it was bought with knowledge of destruction. Elias spoke softly, almost to himself. "They think we fear war," a voice answered from behind him. It was a young human aide standing close by. "Perhaps that is not such a bad thing, sir. Let them believe it." Elias turned his gaze from the stars to the aide. His expression was calm, but his words were firm. "Fear is not the same as weakness. Remember that." Elsewhere in the chamber, alien delegates continued their conversations. Some laughed at the thought of humans standing on a battlefield. Others dismissed them entirely. A few, like Rallin, remained uneasy, sensing something hidden beneath the surface. But none of them not yet understood the truth. The Council believed humans were afraid of war. They believed Earth would never raise its fleets in defense or offense. They believed that when the storm of the Dominion and the Collective arrived, humanity would shrink back like frightened children. And perhaps that was what humanity wanted them to think, because peace was indeed precious to humans. It was the dream that had carried them to the stars. But behind that dream, carved deep into their history, was the hard lesson that peace was only safe when one understood the full weight of war. The chamber lights dimmed as the session ended. Delegates returned to their ships, their worlds, and their duties. Plans were made, alliances whispered, and strategies debated. Yet in the quiet heart of Earth's delegation, Elias Ward prepared for something else. The storm was coming. The galaxy did not yet know what humanity would do when it arrived, but Elias did. He straightened his jacket, looked once more at the stars, and allowed the smallest of smiles to appear. "They will see," he whispered. And with that, the assumption of weakness was sealed into the records of the Galactic Council. But reality, as always, waited beyond the horizon.